Hello and welcome back, everyone. It's just another day in the life as a military wife. And this week, I was able to interview a fellow military spouse. Her name is Zulbiye Jorgensen. And we had a fabulous talk about employment as military spouses, how difficult that can be, and a project that she's working on in regards to all of that. So I want to share the conversation and the information that she passed on with you guys. As always, I'm your host, Sam Wolf, and you're listening to Life of a Military Wife. I'd like to introduce you to today's guest. Zulbiye Jorgensen is a seasoned healthcare professional with over 15 years of diverse experience spanning marketing, strategic operations, and product and program management. For more than 3 decades, she has navigated the unique challenges of being a military spouse, balancing a successful career with unwavering support through forward deployments. Zulbiye holds 2 master's degrees and professional certifications, a testament to her commitment to continuous learning and professional excellence. As a mother of 2 adult children, she is deeply invested in fostering the growth and development of women. Through mentorship, Zool-bee-ya has positively impacted professionals, high school students, and women in her community, showcasing her support, dedication, and commitment to helping others thrive. Zulbiye dedicates her time to being a powerful voice for military spouses, raising awareness about their unique challenges and offering practical steps that can contribute to the well-being of military spouses in similar situations. In her multifaceted life, Zulbiye embodies strength, compassion, and advocacy, making her a remarkable guest for today's conversation. So, without further ado, here's our conversation. Would you like to explain the project you've been working on and what your involvement with the military community is?
Absolutely. Thank you. So I'm Zulbiye Jorgensen, and I'm a military spouse myself. And I recently discovered that there are, challenges within the military spouse community related to career development and career advancement, or just in general employment. So I wanted to further investigate that and interviewed 50 military spouses from various branches to learn about what they have done and what their challenges have been, and what are some of the things that they have done and has not worked, and some of the approaches that have actually worked. So I feel passionate about that because I realized, given my military spouse conditions, where I'm actually married to a person in the Army Reserves right now, and who has been also in the Army National Guard, there are benefits for spouses in terms of being in a location where they can actually focus on their career. And I really learned that quickly that was not the case for individuals who are in the military and who are military spouses in the active duty. So I just wanted to focus on that and what their struggles have been, but also had the chance to speak to some spouses in the National Guard or Air Force Air Guard and some of the other branches too. So feel passionate about it. And my goal is really the big goal is obviously help reduce the unemployment rate among the military spouse community. That's my big goal. And second goal is really providing individuals a step-by-step process that they can actually do to help themselves, regardless of the environment that they're in. And then the third piece is really being a voice for them. That's why I'm here speaking with you, and hopefully we can reach some audiences, not only just in the military community, but also outside of the military community, because our employers need to understand the skills that we bring to the table, the education that we have, and really highlighting who military spouses really are, and the skills that they can bring into the workforce in general. So that is, in a nutshell, the project that I sort of ventured off about a year ago and still in the process of analyzing the data and then hopefully publishing a book about it.
That's fabulous. I think it's great that you're trying to come up with a comprehensive or at least concise and thought a worked out method for military spouses to use. We spoke previously about how it took me a while because we moved around quite a bit and I had young kids, trying to figure out where to go with my career and what to do with the degree that I had. And it's not always going to be conventional, and sometimes it can be discouraging. And so having a resource that you can go to help you kind of work through that path a little bit more directly, or at least not having to do it so much on your own, it will be huge and very beneficial. So in the conversation we had, you said you talked to several military spouses and you had there were definitely ways that were more effective and things that were less effective. Would you care to share some of the more effective ones?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me focus on maybe start out with, I get a lot of questions sometimes from the military spouses in terms of education. I think education is critical to enable us to get into certain positions that require I guess, a college education at the entry level position. So those are very beneficial, but that is definitely not the only way. So we can certainly learn and train in professions that are equally sought out. For example, if and the one that comes to my mind because I can relate to it so much because I work with in an organization with a huge IT resource focus. IT individuals, IT engineers, IT analysts, all their education can be critical, but you can actually enter that market without necessarily having a bachelor's degree, if you will. And getting into those types of positions are critical because you can do them remotely, right? So you don't have to be in person to be able to do that. So I guess that's the one thing. Education, if you feel passionate about and if you feel like there's a specific path you want to follow that requires that, absolutely do it. Recognize all of the resources that are available to you as a military spouse in order to make that happen. So that's one piece. The other thing is things that work for military spouses and they have done it over and over again are really the things that other individuals are doing without a non-military affiliation. Those are networking. And networking is critical, right? As you know, Sam. And in this environment now, we can also network virtually, not necessarily in person, although I would recommend to sort of mix it up because in-person networking can be beneficial and fulfilling in a lot of different ways if you love that connection with individuals in person, but then also virtually, because sometimes we might not have access to resources that are further away, being in the military, right? So utilizing LinkedIn to establish connections or other social media platforms to do that, I think is critical. And that is so important. I can't stress it enough because even in my instances where it has helped me to get to the next position or when I was faced in unemployment during the recession, networking was really critical and that helped me get my next job. So networking in general, you sort of have to put yourself out there. I know it's very uncomfortable for some of us, but really focusing on specific needs that you have, whether that's trying to build a skill that you want to reach out to or admire this individual as a leader and learn from that individual. So you want to think about it and sort of formulate what the goal is of that interaction. And then at the same time, we're all very busy. We all have very different lifestyles and lives and family needs. So you really have to put your family first, prioritize their needs first, and then everything else secondary. So even if that means you can only establish connections once a month, that's all you can do because of all the given challenges that you're dealing with, that's okay. In some cases, you can certainly, establish more connections, but those are critical. The other thing, if you are in a profession and you're doing great, but yet you want to sort of grow in that profession, or maybe transition to another, you want to make sure you have mentors in place, and you can have multiple mentors depending on,
Oh,
your
yeah.
goal and where you want to go. And it sounds like you're very familiar with that too. So that's another thing that successful military spouses do. They have mentors. Again, because of the location, it may not be in person, it may be virtual, because of all the great relationships that you've already built along the way, being a military spouse, right? All over the world, literally.
Oh, yeah.
um, the third one thing that I find it very important, and it's also very difficult for me to do sometimes, is really advocating for yourself and then acquiring sponsors. And what I mean by sponsors is not your military service member, it's individuals who are very familiar with your work, and they
Mhm.
would actually speak on your behalf, recommend you for a specific assignment, or even recommend you for promotions in if you already have a position. So those are some of the things that I think we as military spouses can do, that just works for all of us actually in a professional environment. Those of you that have not established a profession yet because you are very early in your military journey, and I started also at 19 years of age, that's a great opportunity to think about what type of roles or jobs you should check into, or sort of research that is easy to lend themselves for mobility and also for remote work. So that's an opportunity for you that you can certainly check into. And, some of them I've already mentioned: remote work, IT environment. It could certainly be consulting, HR, some I'm trying product management. So I'm in an organization where we develop digital products, product management, UX, and some of those other positions that actually lend themselves really well for remote work. So those are some of the suggestions I would have that I've discovered work really well for those that have tried it.
Yeah, and honestly, sometimes even just volunteering in different organizations, that way you can kind of get a feel of what you're interested in. And so maybe you don't even know, like, take a class. This something I've talked to military spouses I've mentored before that are don't have kids yet. I was like, you've got a lot of freedom. Go take college classes, go do certificate programs, go volunteer, go explore while your husband's deployed or TDY or whatever. And that way you start to get an idea. And when the kids come, you already have an idea of what your mission or what you feel your purpose is. And then you can balance that and the kids. Trying to figure out who you want to be and raising little human beings is kind of a hard thing to do at the same time. Not impossible, but if you've got the heads up before you have kids, why not explore while you're waiting for family if you want kids? So.
That's such a great point, Sam. That's wonderful point to highlight. As through volunteer work, you can certainly discover things that you're passionate about, that you love doing, and that will certainly open up doors as well. Absolutely don't want to minimize the volunteer work, and then really trying to think about where that might lead you.
Yeah. So you said you're working on the book. Any idea when, or are you still in the process of writing it? Where are you at with the book?
I just started actually writing it, and so I envision, because I'm doing it on the as a side hustle in a way, plus in addition to my regular work, I would envision a year and a half at the minimum is what I'm thinking. But in the meantime, certainly helping by being the voice on certain platforms like here, as well as through connections that I've made on LinkedIn and other social platforms where individuals are reaching out and wanting to, learn. And those are some things I offer greatly. I love mentorship myself. I do it within my own organization and as well as in the community. So nobody has to wait for the book by any means, but definitely definitely would be a great resource, I think, because just in the actually, I think within the last week, the Blue Star families have published another survey which highlights the unemployment issues within the spouses community. So I think there's definitely a need and definitely a reason why we need to invest some time and really provide resources for those that need it. So.
Yeah. And also thinking outside the box. That's one of the great aspects of finding a mentor or looking at different resources. Very frequently, people think they've got to go get like a 9 to 5 job at some store or in some office when they're, thanks to COVID, I guess, one of the good sides was we learned how to tech flex. We learned how to be more flexible about where you work and when you work and all of that. A lot of companies are willing to work with military spouses when it comes to childcare stuff and things too. And then there's also a lot of side hustles people can do on their own. They don't need to go work for someone else. They can be their own boss. And
Absolutely.
yeah, it's thinking outside the box because a lot of the careers, like what I'm doing right now, podcaster, that didn't exist when I was in high school. There was no podcasters. I could have never even imagined what I'm doing now with the volunteer work and the mentoring and things. Yeah, there were public speakers, but there wasn't podcasters. That just wasn't a deal. So maybe the thing that you're going to end up doing doesn't even exist yet because the way technology is going, careers are being invented every day.
Absolutely. It's such a great point. Yes.
So, well, I am really excited. I really am grateful for what you're doing. And I feel like that is an important thing for the military community, for us to kind of pull together and be a team and be that support for each other, especially with new spouses. That's where I find a lot of my passion is helping the new military wives and spouses who are trying to just navigate this crazy new life experience that they're going through. And I loved it. Also in the conversation we had, you talked about the difference in trying to work internationally and in different places. There's
Mhm.
been some legislation passed recently, I know in Texas, and some other places where they have reciprocity with different like certifications. But there's still a lot of work to do on reciprocity with certifications so you can take your career from one place to another. You're from Turkey, you grew up in Germany. What is it like for you having to have transitioned working in different countries?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So definitely, I think the benefit of having moved from a country to another country at a young age, you sort of molded so quickly into something that you just do. You learn things so much quicker, like at a younger age. And that sort of sets the foundation for you to, I think a lot of things that I have done coming from Turkey at age 9 to Germany, not speaking one single word of German and learning that, integrating into that community, and then coming into the US, there are a lot of similarities in terms of what you need to do, right? So when I think about being in a country or even in a state, I mean, you can move from the West Coast to the south of the United States, and it's almost like two different countries, right? So I think it could apply certainly in those instances. The other thing, obviously, you speak the language, that maybe not a challenge. However, I think there are certain things that you have to do, right? So early on in the process, you'll love it, right? You want to explore everything. That lasts about a couple of months or so, and then you'll realize, then you start missing the things, like even the smell of your home or the smell of the food that you used to smell, and the that different types of food that you're missing, the family, the hugs, and all of that. And of course, I moved to the US when we did not have the technology capabilities that we have today. So if telephone, phone calls, or post mail, the old traditional way of mailing things was the way to go. So you really try to set guidelines in terms of, okay, what do I need to do to stay connected? I think that's very important. At the same time, what are some things I can do to sort of make me feel comfortable. It's not going to be the same, right? So you might try to be creative, create some of those recipes that your mom cooked for you. It's not going to be exactly the same, but it's good enough. um, and you might actually, and for me, because I enrolled in the university, I think that environment was amazing just because it provided the diversity. So they had foreign students there, so that I established those connections. And also with individuals who are in the community who are very curious about being friends or getting to know people from a different country. So you're not going to be friends with everyone. Nobody, not everybody is going to want to welcome you, and that's okay. That's just the way of the nature people are, and you're just going to focus on those things that people that are receptive to you and spend your time with those individuals. So that's kind of how I have done it, and probably develop skills to even become better and better at it, in terms of when we then hit the first deployment, which was probably the biggest test of all. You sort of really think about, I'm in a rural environment in South Dakota with 300 people living in this village, and it's a farming community. I have two children between the ages of 3 and 8. Family is at thousands of miles away. So what do you do now? That's when you connect with your military community, right? Luckily, we had family readiness groups, and they understand what you're going through. So that's exactly what I did, connected with those individuals. Got to be very careful because sometimes you have to set boundaries. I've noticed in certain instances there may be too much negativity around certain things, and you don't want to expose yourself or your family to that. And you just tell yourself, I'm not going to put up with that, and go into the next activity. So I think it's really understanding what your needs are, putting your family's needs always first, and then allowing yourself to take longer to do things. For example, my education I had to extend for a year and a half. So I think it's those things, being flexible, adjusting, being open-minded. It is tough, and it's okay that you feel that way, and then you let it out and process it and really, really take care of yourself so you can take care of the rest of the family. So those are sort of some of the things that I've done coming from, from Germany to the United States in that community, and that was very helpful. Traveling in the military, though, or being PCSing from one military station to another can be actually a lot easier, just because in the active duty you already have that community established, and that's where you want to just dive in and do the things that relate to you and do the things that you enjoy, not because everybody else wants to do something.
My mom would always say, you find what you're looking for. And the military community is a great place to find friends and make connections and all that. But at the same time, it's okay to have boundaries. Boundaries are important and healthy. And then I love the point that you made, that be flexible. You may not get your degree in 4 years. You may not have your career right away. It might take a little bit longer. You might have to stop and start, take breaks, and that's okay. And being patient with yourself and having that grace to say, you know what, I'm going to do this my own way. And it doesn't have to be the traditional way of doing things. And that's okay.
Absolutely. Great point. Great point.
Well, I am so grateful that I've been able to have you on. It's really great to hear experience. We've been in 10 years, but you guys have been in a lot longer than we have. And I am so impressed the more and more I meet, and the more and more people I'm able to interview and speak to in this community, the broad spectrum of experiences and resources, and just getting those resources out. So thank you. Thank you for reaching out to me. Thank you for
Oh,
being willing to come on and share what you've learned. And I'm going to be putting your bio that you sent me in the description, as well as please send me any social media or anything like that, so that if people want to reach out and connect with you or find out when the book is coming, whenever the book does come, please let me know so I can push that out to everyone and let them know. But yeah, is there anything else? If people want to get a hold of you or want to keep in touch and see where you're at and what you're going on with, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Great question. LinkedIn is probably the best place to reach out to me. I am also on Instagram as well as Facebook, but LinkedIn is under my first and last name. So that's probably the best way. And I'm very active on LinkedIn. I would consider a pretty large network of military spouses already on there. So we try to help each other as we find opportunities. That's how we spread the word. Certainly can do it in other ways too. But yeah, that's probably the best way to get hold of me.
Okay. I will make sure I put your LinkedIn in the description also so people can find you that way. But
Excellent.
thank you so much. And I'm really excited. Good luck with the book. I hope everything works out. And yeah, have a wonderful time.
Thank you,
Wonderful
Sam.
day.
Bye-bye.
I want to say again that I'm very grateful to have had Zulbiye on as a guest and to have been able to share those resources with you guys from her work. And I am still putting together and finalizing the interview schedule for the rest of this year. I am grateful for everyone who has reached out to me and shown interest or shared resources that they have. So please keep those coming. Still working on the list and all of that. Like always, you will be able to find the links to how to access the podcast or contact me in the description of this episode. And please continue, share, help, reach out. Let's be a community. Let's help be the good we want to see in the world. And with that said, I am your host, Sam Wolf, and you've been listening to Life of a Military Wife.